Welcome to the Ultimate Sports Podcast. The first guest of the day hosts the Wild Card Champs podcast, and he's here to talk football and baseball. Sean Verma, how are you doing this afternoon?
Not bad. Could be worse.
Yeah, same here. Could be worse. I have Phillies and Braves on right now on my TV, and we'll get to baseball later. So we'll start with football. We're gonna just go through some storylines. Do a little fun game here, true or false, and see what statements you think are going to end up being true or false once the season's done here. One of the biggest ones is obviously the Patriots and their great start. Do you think they go 16-0, true or false?
I'm going to say true.
Ooh, wow. I'm going to say false only because I have a feeling that there's a trap game somewhere and they get caught looking ahead, potentially. I don't know if that's going to come against the Bills within the next couple weeks, or it could come against somebody that's better, like the Ravens down the road. But I have a feeling they get picked off somewhere. I just don't know where. Maybe the Cowboys get them. They have the Eagles on their schedule. Maybe the Eagles get healthy by the time they play the Patriots. But I have a feeling that the Patriots get picked off somewhere. This one I think we're going to agree with. The Dolphins go 0-16, true or false?
True.
I'm going to say true, too, because that team is just horrendous. And
they have one of the worst point differentials through two games in NFL history.
Yes, they do. It's minus 107 or something insane like that. And this is probably the worst team I've ever seen. They're plus 350 on FanDuel to go 0-16. I probably should put some money on that before it goes to plus 200. The New Orleans Saints lost Drew Brees for 6 weeks. Do you think they will survive without Drew Brees? True or false?
I'm going to say false because their schedule before the bye week is really difficult. They got Dallas, they got Seattle in Seattle, which is always a difficult matchup. Then they got to play the Bears, and they're tough defense. Without Drew Brees, I don't fully see them. I think they might go 500 in that stretch. Best case scenario. After the bye week, then they got to face Atlanta. And I'm not so high on their secondary.
I'm going to disagree here with you because, like you said, you can go 500, but this is more about the division that they're in rather than them themselves. I don't love Teddy Bridgewater as their backup quarterback option. I think Taysom Hill could be better than Teddy Bridgewater, by the way. And I won't be surprised if Taysom Hill actually starts over Bridgewater on Sunday. I'm going to go out and say that. And I think they go 500, but I think their division's weak. I think the Bucs are overrated, and I think the Panthers, without a healthy Cam Newton, aren't a good team. And Atlanta's good, but how good really are they? They really probably should have lost that Eagles game, but hey, give them credit for winning that game. I think it's going to be between them and the Falcons, and if Brees is back and say it's a tie atop that division, I think that Brees can come back sort of like a trade deadline acquisition for the Saints and lead them to the division title. And I think the only thing that this injury for Brees costs them is a first-round bye. I think they'll be the 3 or the 4 seed come January. And the Pittsburgh Steelers lost their quarterback, Ben Roethlisberger, for the season. Do you think they're done, true or false?
I'm going to say false.
Interesting.
But there's one condition to that. And that's the Cleveland Browns. That's the wild card in that division. If they are roughly the same team that they were last year, the 500 Browns or worse, then I could see the Steelers squeaking in as a 5 or 6 seed. That obviously also depends on the play of Mason Rudolph, who I haven't really seen much of. And can their offensive weapons, Juju Smith-Schuster and James Conner at running back, can they still produce in the absence of Ben Roethlisberger?
That's a very good question. I hope Juju produces because I have him in my fantasy lineup. But
same.
I'm going to say that they're done, but I don't feel good about it for the reason you mentioned with the Browns and the fact that the Colts, Andrew Luck retired. There's a lot of things that make the AFC playoff picture wide open, and if Rudolph's good, then they can make the playoffs. If not, I think it's all up to Rudolph and his play. And Rudolph was not bad against the Seahawks. The defense cost them that game, which made them go out and trade for Minkah Fitzpatrick while giving up the first-round pick. So I'm going to say they're done, but I don't feel good about it. I feel better about the Saints because Drew Brees is only out for 6 to 8 weeks, and Roethlisberger's done for the season. But you never know. I could be wrong. And AFC as a whole, outside of the Patriots and the Chiefs, I think is a little weak. Do you think Cam Newton misses multiple games? True or false?
True, but it might not necessarily be because of injury. He might just get benched.
Hmm.
I don't know about you, but I can't say that his play in the first 2 weeks was all injury related. I'm sure partially, but my biggest problem with Cam Newton, especially the past few years, is he relies so much on his ability to rush for yards, and he's not a great passer. He's not terrible, but he's not great. And so, if he comes back early in the season, like last year when Rodgers came back from his injury briefly, he was still playing through pain, and that limited his mobility. If Cam Newton comes back in 2-3 weeks or so, and he's partially healthy but not quite, then how much mobility do you expect him to have? So,
yeah,
the passing game is so important to him. The passing game is so important when you don't have a ton of mobility. And did you see those balls that he was spiking in week 2? It didn't look like he was spiking, just completely underthrowing.
Yeah.
To like Greg Olsen and his offensive weapons and that. And besides, because the Panthers have Christian McCaffrey, I mean, they can run the football.
Yeah, they can absolutely run the football. It looks like he's going to miss this week due to injury, and I think he does miss multiple weeks due to injury. So I'm going to say true on that one, too. 2 more true and falses, then we'll go through other NFL storylines. Dak Prescott gets paid this season. True or false?
True.
I'm going to say true as well. It's a matter of when, not if. If he's not paid during the season, like I think, he'll get paid in the offseason. I think he's the franchise quarterback for the Cowboys going forward. Do I think they'll overpay him? Probably, because you got to overpay quarterbacks nowadays with all the guaranteed money and whatnot. But yeah, they'll pay Dak Prescott. And now the question is, do they also pay Amari Cooper? And there's like a lot of guys that they have on their roster that really are great players, and I think that could be the team to beat in the NFC. They are really, really good.
I like their roster for sure. The Cowboys have, for a few years now, have had a lot of really good players, and they've been knocking on the door, and they haven't quite broken through. It could happen this year. It could happen at any point, really.
Yeah, exactly. I think that they could win the division this year for the second time in a row and the 3 times in 4-year span, especially with the Eagles and their injury situation. Last true false for you. This is a good one. NFL player, or I should say a current NFL player, will be on season 2 of Fox's hit show, The Masked Singer. True or false?
I wish I knew who that was.
You don't know what The Masked Singer is? It's a reality show that celebrities go in disguise under masks. You never seen it? Antonio Brown was on it last year.
Oh, yes. Yeah, I remember that now. I didn't know that's what it's called, though.
I'm
gonna say yes, but it probably won't be Brown. I could see it being somebody like Julio Jones or somebody like that, or Ezekiel Elliott.
I have another running back in mind, and it's one on my favorite football team, Saquon Barkley. I could see, it's just because nobody would see that coming. Nobody had Antonio Brown on that show last year. I remember a judge thought it was Odell Beckham Jr. that was in the hippo costume, but it ended up being Antonio Brown. He was close, but picked the wrong diva wide receiver. So, yeah, I actually think it's going to be Saquon. I don't feel good about it, only because Saquon's on a big market team. Yeah, he's on a bad team, but he's on a big market team, big name in the league. I could see a world where Saquon Barkley's on the show. Julio Jones is a good candidate, too, because he's like Antonio Brown, a wide receiver that's really good, although the Falcons are not a marquee team, and obviously Brown was on the Steelers at the time. So we'll see. Yeah, I think there's going to be a player on The Masked Singer. I'm surprised you didn't know the name of the show, but as soon as I mentioned Antonio Brown was on it last year, then you knew.
My apologies, I'm Canadian.
No, it's all good. Now we're going to talk about other NFL storylines. We won't do true or false here. We're just going to talk about teams and whatnot. There's a lot of teams that are currently 2-0 in the NFL. Which 2-0 team you think is a fraud? And let's exclude the 3 contenders, New England, Dallas, and the Rams. Which 2-0 team do you think is a fraud?
That's a really tough one. If I were to pick one team, and you might be a little surprised by this, I'm gonna say the Buffalo Bills.
Interesting. My pick, I hate to disappoint you, but the Green Bay Packers, and it's only because that their offense has really had 2 good quarters all season, and their defense is much improved, don't get me wrong, but I'm still concerned about Rodgers in that offense, and the Vikings had their way with them outside of that first quarter, so I'm going to say it's the Green Bay Packers that are the 2-0 fraud, although the Bills, I'm not surprised that you said the Bills, because a lot of people probably think the Bills, because they played the 2 New York teams who both suck right now, and they've had some up and down play too. Like, I could see you picking the Bills there. That doesn't surprise me. How about
you have to also understand that with the Packers is they just faced the two of the top 5 NFL defenses in consecutive weeks, and Rodgers is, as much as people do like to rip on him and say he's past his prime, I think he's past his prime too, and the Packers should probably go the Patriots route of having him throw more check down passes and doing catch and runs, but one of the things that I think people don't understand is that Rodgers is a slow starter. In 2014, when he won his last MVP, remember his quote, "relax"?
Yup.
He got off to a slow start. The Packers did too. And then, he had his passer rating was over 120 in the second half of the season.
Oh, yeah.
In 2016, the same thing happened. And you also think this is a new offense. So I'm not worried just yet that the Packers have a terrible offense. I don't like the receiving core as much as other people do. I would honestly like to see them pick up Dez Bryant, pick up fire on Dez Bryant. He's supposed to be playing, in October? That's when he says he wants to sign with a team, and the Packers are one of those teams he's been very interested in. And having, some veteran leadership in that receiving core, and I do somewhat, I do like the idea of having Adams and Dez Bryant as Rodgers' 2 best weapons, but we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, that would be interesting. I'm not sold on the fact that Dez Bryant's still good at football, but you never know. Maybe they catch lightning in a bottle with him.
They did with Charles Woodson, don't forget.
Oh, you're right. They did with Charles Woodson, absolutely. How about the 0-2 team that you think can turn their season around? This one's a tough one, too.
I mean, I guess that would probably be the Steelers, right? Because I did say that I could see them sneaking in, so I got to stick to that take.
Yeah, that's a good answer. You can make the case that Rudolph is good and Juju and James Conner step up their game defense and improve the Minka Fitzpatrick. This was a tough one for me. Yes, they have your beloved Green Bay Packers in week number 3, but I wouldn't rule out the Denver Broncos. Even though their offense is not very good, they, like the Packers and like some other teams, have an excellent defense, and they have a great pass rush led by Bradley Chubb and Von Miller. So I could see a world where the Denver Broncos turn their season around once they play.
It's interesting that you bring them up because they've generated 0 turnovers through the first 2 games of the season, and the Packers actually have a higher percentage of pressures than the Broncos do. A small sample size, yes, but you got to wonder if Chubb specifically is starting to decline a little bit. It's surprising because they have Vic Fangio as their head coach, the defensive expert here. But it's kind of funny how that works, doesn't it?
Yeah. How about the 2-0 team that you're buying in, like the team that's for real? And again, we're excluding Dallas, Rams, and Patriots, obviously, because those are the 3 contenders.
I was going to say the Patriots.
Yeah, we're excluding the contenders. We're excluding the Patriots, Cowboys, and Rams.
So then I guess I'm high on the Chiefs.
Oh, wait a minute. We have to exclude them, too. You're right. Oh, my God. I'm a moron. I forgot that. I should have put the Chiefs on that list. I forgot that they're 2-0. They're a contender, too.
Yeah. You're about to make my job really easy.
Yeah, I forgot to include them. That's my bad.
It's easy to say, yeah, Pat Mahomes will lead the Chiefs to another 1 seed. Probably not this year, though. at this point, and this my bias might show a little bit, I'm higher on the Packers than most people are, and this is coming from somebody that has not been high on the Packers for a very long time. The last time I could truly say that I was confident that they could make a deep playoff run was in the 2014 season when they choked in Seattle.
Yeah, that was a good team. That they should have won that game.
Well, they didn't deserve to win. They let their foot off the gas, especially McCarthy kicking field goals instead of going for touchdowns. Rodgers didn't play great at all. And you obviously had the Brandon Bostic on. So many things went wrong in that game. And really since then, they've been an underachieving franchise.
Oh, absolutely.
Game, really.
Absolutely they have. And they people really don't point out that a lot. I mean, Packer fans like you do, but like the media and stuff like kind of forget if that ever happened.
Yeah, I'm not saying that. I'm not Nick Wright here saying, oh, the Packers are going to win the 1 seed. I'm not saying that. I'm not stupid. But one thing that I do feel confident in, that the Packers defense, barring any serious injuries to Kevin King or Jair Alexander, the two young stud corners, the defense is good enough that they could get the team through the first 5-6 weeks so that the offense can work out the kinks. And if the offense gets hot, then it's over. They'll squeak in.
Yeah, that won't surprise me. Their defense is absolutely improved, and you made a good point with that. They faced the Vikings and the Bears defenses the first 2 weeks, and those are two very good defenses. And the Broncos have a good defense as well. And so it should be interesting to see how, once they face like weaker teams, I know they have the Giants on their schedule, so maybe they'll put up some points against them. And I think they have the Redskins on their schedule too. They stink defensively, and the Eagles, who are weak defensively. So I think their offense will eventually catch up to their defense, and maybe they do go on a run. Maybe I'm wrong about the Packers. My 2-0 team.
Sort of a second half team.
Yeah, that's very true. My 2-0 team that I think is for real is the Ravens. I don't feel super confident in saying that, but I'm buying the Lamar Jackson breakout this year. The two rookie wide receivers, even though it's been 2 weeks, have been very good. Talk about Hollywood Brown, and Miles Boykin from Notre Dame. But I really like the young players that they built their team around with Lamar Jackson, and their defense isn't bad, although they have an injury in their secondary to Jimmy Smith. So I'm going to say the Ravens are the 2-0 team that I'm buying. I can't believe I didn't put the Chiefs down in terms of the 2-0 teams for real, like in the excluding category, because they're obviously a contender. One more for you. Daniel Jones is making his NFL debut for real this weekend against the Bucs. Did the Giants make the right decision to go to Daniel Jones in Week 3?
Yes, because, and I'm just going to be honest, the Giants aren't going anywhere this year, so they might as well, start the young up-and-coming QB that they drafted in the first round and see what he's got, and give him reps in low-pressure games. Because, yes, I know football Giants fans love Eli Manning, and they're kind of sad that he's finally on the precipice of retiring. He did get benched 2 years ago. Am I wrong?
Oh no, you're not wrong. He got benched 2 years ago for Geno Smith, and
yeah,
they probably should have benched him at the time, but they benched him for the wrong player. They probably should have benched him for then rookie quarterback Davis Webb, who they drafted in the 4th round, then ended up cutting the next year. But they probably thought Davis Webb sucked, so instead the moron coach they had back then, Ben McAdoo, who was an Aaron Rodgers product, by the way, benched Eli Manning for Geno Smith. But yeah, I think the Giants did the right thing too. I was calling for it on Twitter if you have seen it, and I'm proud of the Giants for pulling the plug now. I'll always love Eli Manning. He's going to be in the Hall of Fame. I don't care what the haters say, but it's time to move on, and I'm looking forward to see what Jones brings to the table. Okay.
Eli Manning's Giants have broken my heart twice. So.
Oh, you're right. Yeah, they upset you guys in the playoffs a couple times. Once with Favre and once with Rodgers, and I'm very surprised.
I blame Favre for 2007. I blame him for that one.
Yeah, I remember he threw a brutal interception in that game, and then in 2008, your defense was really, really bad, and Rodgers carried your team to the 1 seed. You guys went 15-1 that year. I'll never forget it. And it's funny because I remember you guys played us in the regular season that year at MetLife Stadium, and you guys beat us on a field goal. I remember the Giants came from behind to win that game, or to tie that game, and then you guys kicked the field goal at the end to win it. And I remember thinking, oh, in Lambeau Field, maybe the Giants are competitive, but they'll probably lose because it's at Lambeau Field, not at MetLife Stadium. And then Giants fans were getting at me at the time saying, oh, don't forget they did that in 2008. I'm like, that was against Brett Favre, not against the best. Aaron Rodgers, let's face it, was the best player in football at the time. And I was wrong. And then after they won that game in Lambeau, I'm like, oh, the Giants are definitely winning the Super Bowl again. And then they ended up winning the Super Bowl again. But yeah, those are memories I'll never forget with Eli Manning, and I know memories that you'd like to forget with your teams as big favorites in both of those games, losing.
Those aren't the worst losses that I can remember, though. I mean, the Favre one was bad because that was his final pass as a Packer, was getting picked off by Corey Webster.
Yep.
But no, for me the worst one in recent memory was Seattle. That one I'll never get over.
Yeah.
Until they win another Super Bowl. And I guess the two losses to the 49ers and Colin Kaepernick, those ones are just like, why? Why are we letting Colin Kaepernick become, the second coming of Peyton Manning?
Colin Kaepernick was a good quarterback back then. I mean...
His best games came against the horrible Packers defense.
You're right. His best games did come against the Packers in the playoffs. I remember that for sure. Let's switch over to baseball now. We'll try to be quick here because I know you have to go. We'll talk about some contenders and things for the playoffs. Astros, we'll start with Yordan Alvarez. The Astros have the best record in baseball right now, but that could change as the days go on. You never know. Yordan Alvarez, do you think he'll win the American League Rookie of the Year?
Yeah, I do.
I do too. He's absolutely running away with this award. He's the Astro that scares me the most right now. I feel like that's the next Yankees killer, don't you think?
Perhaps. I could totally see that.
I could see him being the ALCS MVP against the Yankees, assuming that that's the ALCS.
Yeah, you have to be careful when it comes to predicting who the ALCS is going to be, because when I look at the other AL teams, I don't see a single one that the Yankees match up particularly well with. Because each and every one of those teams, I could see a way that they can beat the Yankees. With the Astros, it's obviously they're just better at everything except their bullpen, obviously. They're better off. They're as good offensively. The starting pitching is way better, and they're a great defensive team. The Twins are a good defensive team. Their rotation isn't bad. It's probably on par with the Yankees, and obviously they hit as many home runs as the Yankees do, so the Yankees can't just blow them out of the water. And then as for the A's, I'm not as scared of the A's as other Yankee fans are, because too many Yankee fans look at season series and they don't realize that half the time it goes the other way if they face each other in the playoffs. I'm more scared of the fact that the A's are a great defensive team and they play fundamentally sound baseball, and those are teams that the Yankees have lost to in the past. The Angels, for instance, were one of those teams that just played baseball the right way, and they made all the plays. They got the big hit when they needed to, and those are the teams that always scare me the most.
Yeah, but that Angels team was a long time ago, and Mike Trout wasn't there yet, and neither was Albert Pujols. That was a long, long time ago, back in the Torrey days. The team that I'm least afraid of is the Minnesota Twins. I just think that they took advantage of the Tigers, Royals, and White Sox and the injury to Jose Ramirez to win this division title, and the slow start by the Indians too. So I think the Twins might be a little bit of a fluke. They're a good team, don't get me wrong, but I think that's the worst team that's going to make the playoffs. Like, I'd pick a National League team like the Cubs or the Cardinals to beat the Twins. I just think the Twins are absolute frauds. Their bullpen and their starting rotation stinks, and their offense obviously is very good, though. I just am not a fan of the Twins, and I think that the Yankees or the Astros, whoever plays them in the first round, will sweep the Minnesota Twins.
The Yankees have had their way with the Twins. in the 21st century. I will say that.
Yeah, I'm judging it on that too.
Every time the Yankees have faced the Twins in a playoff series, they've made very quick work of them.
Yeah, exactly. That's why I think they'll be swept in the first round regardless if it's Yankees or Houston. And speaking of the Yankees, Luis Severino came back, looked good against the Angels. You couldn't have asked for more. Granted, the Angels don't have Mike Trout right now, but you still got to give credit to where credit's due. 4 shutout innings.
Shut him down.
Yeah, I wasn't expecting him to throw a shutout the other day, but he did. And even though it was 4 innings and he had a pitch count limit, I think that if Severino's right and James Paxton keeps up his fine pitching throughout the last 2 months like he has, I think they have a chance to beat the Astros. I am not kidding, and I know I sound like a homer by saying that, but if Severino is right and Paxton continues the hot run, they can beat the Astros. Especially with how poorly Wade Miley's pitching.
Anything's possible in playoff baseball, as we all know. So I'm not gonna disagree with your take. Yes, if Severino and Paxton are going well in a playoff series, the Yankees have a chance. Not a phenomenal chance. Like, I wouldn't pick them. I wouldn't take the under. But I think one of the things that people don't realize about starting pitching is that in a playoff series, the back end of the rotation doesn't really factor in all that much. So I don't think the fact that Wade Miley has struggled as of late is really going to be a big factor in a Yankees-Astros ALCS matchup. What would be a bigger factor is how well do the Astros' top 2 starters pitch against the Yankees. I think that will have a much bigger impact. Not even ruling out the possibility that A.J. Hinch throws out Verlander 3 times.
Oh, he will do that on short rest, but
not even ruling that out.
Oh, absolutely. I'm not ruling that out either, and I think that Boone should consider the same thing with whomever's pitching the best on the Yankees, too. And to me, the real guy that has to really pitch better for me, although he's been great in the postseason with his track record, is Masahiro Tanaka. I believe in that guy still in the playoffs. And
a lot of people do, yeah. But that's a small sample size you're working with. 30 innings. I mean, to put that in perspective, Severino's postseason sample size is 23 innings. So if we're talking about a pitcher that averages 7 innings per start, I know Severino doesn't do that, but that's one fewer start if you think about it that way. And if you're going to use Tanaka's playoff sample size to determine that he's, a big game pitcher, like he's the Yankees version of Madison Bumgarner, I know it might be a slight exaggeration, but if you're gonna assume that he's a big game pitcher off of that sample size, then it would, logistically speaking, you'd have to come to the conclusion that Severino's playoff sample size makes him look like a choker, like a Clayton Kershaw.
That's very true. And somebody on Twitter was killing me because I screamed small sample size at the person that's saying, oh, Severino has had a couple bad playoff games. And he's always going to be judged, as of right now, on that bad Red Sox game from last year and the Twins wild card game, just like how Clayton Kershaw's judged as a bad playoff pitcher as well. Like, I know that somebody did compare Severino to Clayton Kershaw in that regard. And then I defended Kershaw and said, don't forget, Roberts let him out of the bullpen, and he got the save against the Nationals. I'll never forget that, and he got the job done. And I give Clayton Kershaw a pat on the back for that. And I picked the Dodgers in that series, too, against the Nats. Do you remember that? When Kershaw came out of the bullpen and got the save in Game 5?
I remember that series. I remember the results of that game. I also remember the Nationals trying to use Max Scherzer to close out an NLDS and that blowing up in their face.
Yeah, against the Cubs. I remember I was at the bar watching that game, and my buddy's a Cubs fan, and he was so excited. He was so scared that it was Scherzer, but I remember Baez or somebody getting a big hit off of Scherzer to give the Cubs the lead, and he was so excited, and I'll never forget that. Is a black mark on Max Scherzer's career resume. Nobody talks about that, but that's a black mark on Max Scherzer's career resume, in my opinion, right?
I think the thing with Scherzer is that there aren't a lot of playoff wins on his resume, but his bullpen, whether it was when he was in Detroit or whether he was in Washington, his bullpen has blown a lot of games.
You're right.
Remember the ALCS against the Red Sox where Scherzer pitched two gems but lost both games?
Yeah, that's because Detroit's bullpen was really, really bad. Now it's the year 2013. Now it's the year that Big Papi and that Red Sox team that really wasn't that good won the World Series.
Yeah.
Yeah, and obviously the 2018 Red Sox was a much better team than the 2013 Red Sox, even though David Ortiz was on the one. But yeah, I do remember Max Scherzer pitching 2 gems and the bullpen blowing it. I remember David Ortiz's grand slam in that series in Game 2. I remember I came home, I went out somewhere that night, and I came home, and I correctly predicted that Ortiz was going to hit a grand slam. And I was like, oh, David Ortiz is going to hit a grand slam. That would be so Red Sox, so Ortiz. And then I was right.
Yeah, that was... It was at that moment that I realized that the Red Sox are becoming like the Patriots, in the sense that don't let them make the playoffs or they'll go on a run.
Yeah. I used to say that about my beloved football Giants when Eli Manning was still very good as well. And there's a lot of other teams, don't let them get in the playoffs. Like, obviously, the San Francisco Giants with Bumgarner. A couple teams that are like that. A couple more baseball things for you. The Jose Ramirez injury I mentioned before, do you think if he doesn't get hurt, the Indians win that division or make the wild card?
It's tough to say because he had that really slow start to the season. I know he had a couple big games against the Yankees, but you know, the Yankees make a lot of average to mediocre hitters look better than they are. His overall numbers before his injury, slashing .254 with a .325 on base and .463 slugging. That's a .788 OPS. Now, granted, that is a little skewed because of his slow first half. I'm not totally sure that Jose Ramirez makes that big of a difference.
The way he was going in the second half, he was really going, and he turned his year around. Like you said, his numbers were skewed because of his slow start. That's why I asked you that question. I think he did.
Maybe there are a few games closer.
Listen, I think Jose Ramirez is overrated, but he was on a run in that second half of the season, and I think that injury sank the Indians, really. And they're a game and a half back of the wild card. Not saying that they're done right now or anything, but I think that injury will ultimately come back to bite them, and I think that the wild card teams will be the A's and the Rays. Do you think it's Athletics and the Rays in the wild card game too?
Yeah, it's looking like it. It's looking like the A's will have home field advantage.
Yeah.
For that wild card. That'll be the first time that the A's get to play the wild card game at the Coliseum.
That's right, and the A's had some big playoff wins in that building before. I remember they took Verlander and Scherzer in the Tigers to 5 games.
Do you remember who outpitched Verlander?
Sonny Gray.
Yeah. Gotta love Sonny Gray.
Yeah, a few more for you. Best chance to upset the Dodgers before the World Series in the National League.
A lot of people are going to say the Atlanta Braves, and I'm gonna be a little unique with my take here. I'm gonna say the Washington Nationals.
Interesting.
Now, what both the Braves and Nationals struggle with is they both have pretty mediocre to terrible bullpens. But I take the Nationals rotation over the Braves rotation. And I also take... The offenses are a lot closer than people think.
Oh, I agree.
The Braves have only scored 11 more runs than the Nationals.
Yeah. Both of those teams, I think, are even offensively, but I give the Nationals the rotation edge. Both teams' bullpens absolutely stink. I think the team that's most likely to upset the Dodgers is the Nationals, too, because of their rotation. But I don't feel good about that at all, because their bullpen is so bad, and the Nationals are choke artists come October. So I'm putting, an asterisk by it. But because of Scherzer and the top of that rotation, I think the Nats, and their offense, obviously, too. And speaking of the Nationals, one of mine for you, Anthony Rendon. Do you think he's the National League MVP with yellow shirt?
Yeah.
I don't feel good about it, but I'm going to say it's Cody Bellinger because the narrative is best player on the best team, like we saw from Mookie Betts last year, Jose Altuve the year before. I know that hasn't been the rule in the National League lately because Giancarlo Stanton won the MVP on a bad Marlins team 2 years ago. And then, who won the NL MVP last year? Oh, Yelich.
Yeah, actually, you know what? I'm sorry, I kind of forgot that Bellinger existed for like 5 minutes. I'm going with him. His WAR is like almost 9.
That's okay. I forgive you for changing your pick.
Yeah. No, both of them have OPSs over 1,000, but yeah, I'm going with Cody Bellinger actually.
Interesting.
You know what? It's so
close.
funny because whenever I think of the LA Dodgers, I always think about their rotation. I always think about Kershaw and Walker Buehler and Hyun-Jin Ryu. I completely forget that they have probably one of the best players in baseball this season in Cody Bellinger. I completely forget that. I think it's because when the Yankees played them, Bellinger did absolutely nothing.
Yeah.
So I just sort of forgot he existed. Like, I have a tendency to do that sometimes when players on the other team just don't have a good series against the Yankees. It doesn't register in my head that, wait, this guy's having a great year.
Yeah, that's very true. Bellinger was quiet in that series. That was a bad series loss for the Dodgers in my mind. Very alarming because Ryu pitched poorly against the Yankees, and their offense really didn't do anything in that series. Their pitching carried them to that win, that Saturday game. CeCe wasn't terrible in that Dodgers game, but the rest of the Yankees pitching, like the bullpen stepped up in that game and gave them a chance. And let's face it, the Yankees would have swept the Dodgers probably if not for that bad call on that Saturday game in the game where they lost.
I definitely think the Yankees match up better against the Dodgers than they do against the Astros.
Oh, absolutely they do. I agree with you there. And that's why if they get by the Astros, I would pick them to win the World Series. Although I think they'll be a good series. I think it's like a 7-gamer with the Dodgers because I just think that Buehler and Kershaw will be tough to beat. Although I think Ryu's vulnerable in a playoff series.
Yeah, did you see him against the Red Sox last year? And Kershaw hasn't exactly proved himself yet as being able... Like, he's been able to pitch well. It's like he's mastered the NLDS, and he's mastered the NLCS. He has not mastered the World Series yet.
Yeah, you're right. He has not mastered the World Series yet. I trust Kershaw more in Dodger Stadium than I do in Yankee Stadium. I'll put it that way.
Oh, agreed.
And Kershaw pitched well against the Yankees on Sunday Night Baseball, but he just didn't get run support. Domingo Germán stepped up in that game.
Yeah, I think the one Dodger starter that I would be scared of as far as having a really good game against the Yankees, it's Walker Buehler.
Oh, I love Walker Buehler. I had him as my preseason Cy Young Award winner in the National League. And now his teammate, Ryu, might end up winning the award. It's either going to be Ryu, Scherzer, or a repeat for Jacob deGrom.
Yeah, deGrom has come on very strong in the second half for sure.
Yeah, and before...
The Mets still can't give that guy run support. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, I feel bad for deGrom. And before we go, I have to give you credit for predicting this Mets run.
I mean, yeah, I saw it coming, but what was the prediction? They were going to get within 5 games? It was either
3. You said 3
of the wild card.
I think it was 3. But you did say that they were going to go on a run. They were going to be within 3 games in September, and we're in September, and they're within 3.
As we currently stand, they are 3 games back in the second wild card.
Tie with the Phillies. Them and the Phillies are kind of back in it. The Phillies got to win this game today against the Braves here if they want to move up.
Yeah, not taking advantage of a mediocre Red Sox team.
Yeah, I was very mad at the Phillies because I bet on them. Like, I bet against Rick Porcello all the time, and it's a moneymaker. And I've been betting against the Red Sox a lot, too, and it's been winning me a lot of money because that's a team that Vegas right now is overvaluing in the market. Like, they're like minus 180 with Eovaldi on the mound the other day. I'm like, I'm taking San Francisco. Mike Yastrzemski, Carl Yastrzemski. I get that Yastrzemski vibe, and the Giants will win that series. And then Bochy for 2,000 yesterday was a neat thing to see. But yeah, great call on the Mets. prediction. That was very, very smart. And I was just like, I could see a world where that happens if their offense turns around. And they've done that a lot without Robinson Cano, because Cano was on the DL for a while.
Yeah. Obviously, Pete Alonso, he's at, 49 homers now? He's going to blow past Judge. I can totally see that.
Oh, my God, I know. He's going to blow by Judge's record.
We're at how many games left? 9?
Yeah, but Judge, I think, had a better 2017 than Alonso this year, only because I think Judge had a better batting average. And although I think Alonso is probably going to end up driving in more runs, but Judge had a better batting average and was on a better team than Alonso was on. So I'm giving Judge the edge. Maybe I'm biased.
Exactly. Mets fans can, scream about how great their rookie slugger is. We have a playoff team. We have a team that year in and year out can make the postseason and have a puncher's chance of winning a title. So I'll take that over being a Mets fan any day.
Oh, absolutely. And Judge is the best player on the Yankees, too. And don't get me wrong, Alonso is the best player on the Mets, and he really has done a great job helping them get to this point. Them and Noah Syndergaard turning his year around. Obviously, DeGrom pitching like a Cy Young again. The Mets have obvious reasons why their season turned around, but Aaron Judge, give me him over Peter Alonso 24/7.
It's not talked about that Judge has actually had a much better year than you might think. He is tied for second amongst Yankee players in weighted runs created plus. He's tied with DJ LeMahieu at 136, and Gio Urshela leads with 138 WRC plus.
Yeah, WRC plus is one of those analytical stats that Yankees Twitter people really are obsessed with. One last thing before we go. Do you sit Didi in the playoffs and move Gleyber to shortstop like the likes of Max Wildstein and like all these other people on Yankees Twitter suggesting because of the analytic stats, or do you still go with Didi? Who do you sit in the playoffs?
I think before I answer that question, I want to ask, should Didi be hitting near the top of the lineup?
Oh, no, he should be hitting sixth.
Yeah, okay, so we can agree on that. It's kind of ridiculous. I see him batting third, and I see him batting cleanup, and I'm like, for a team that prides themselves on being so heavily into analytics, do they not notice the fact that Didi Gregorius has a sub-300 on-base percentage?
That's why all the Yankees Twitter people want Didi to sit, because of his on-base percentage below 3. I personally think that the first year post-Tommy John surgery is always hard. I think that there's a chance the Yankees let him walk, because I think that they like Gleyber Torres as a shortstop, but I could be absolutely wrong, and they do bring back Didi on like a 3-year deal or something. But we'll see. I think they end up sitting, only because he's injured, as of right now, Edwin. But when Edwin comes back, whoever's colder between Luke Voit and Giovanni Urshela, they sit. Because I think they still pride themselves with the left-handed bat and Didi playing great defense at shortstop. So I'm going to say that Edwin, once he comes off the IL, I'm going to say that either whoever's colder between Giovanni Urshela and Luke Voit sit.
Yeah, because if you look at the Yankees infield, players that they can't rest in a playoff game, you can't rest DJ LeMahieu in a playoff game.
Oh, absolutely. They won't do it, though.
That simply can't happen. I would not rest Gleyber Torres in a playoff game either. Those two guys are probably the two most important cogs in the Yankees infield in terms of offensive production.
Absolutely.
And obviously, while Gleyber doesn't have a very good glove, DJ is a great glove. So it's very important that LeMahieu specifically plays in the infield, and it's important to have Gleyber there too. And so that leaves... Well, the obvious question is, like you alluded to, should Gleyber play short or should he play second? Because if he plays second, that means you're putting LeMahieu at either third base or first base. If Gleyber plays short, then you have LeMahieu at second, and then you could have someone like Urshela playing third, and then at first you can have Voit or Encarnacion, which would mean that Didi's not playing.
Yep.
There's so many different ways that you can align the Yankees infield, and I think that's why it's very likely that the Yankees will sit Didi for some of those playoff games. let's say if they have a tough lefty on the mound that they're going up against, because, I mean, let's be real, Didi Gregorius is no longer vital to the Yankees' success like he was 2 years ago, right? He was the one player that, besides Aaron Judge, that you didn't want the Yankees to sit in a game. It was a regular season game or obviously a playoff game. You didn't want to do away with Didi Gregorius.
Yeah, I think they might sit Didi against lefties, and I think that could come back to bite him if their offense struggles, though, and their starting pitching is ending up good. And if the Yankees' offense struggles, then you're going to be hearing the critics that want Didi in the lineup screaming that they should have played Didi. So it's an interesting thing, but yeah, I think they will sit Didi against lefties and go with Glaber short and DJ at second. But against righties, I think that they'll sit either Urshela or Voit, depending on the matchup.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, unless if Edwin Encarnacion's still hurt, then you play both Voit and Giovanni Urshela. Okay, it was fun to have you on today, and maybe I'll get you on during the playoffs at some point.
All right, sounds good. Thanks for having me on.
No problem.